There is a kind of man who walks into a room and says nothing. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't reach for anyone's attention. He simply arrives. And yet, without a single word, without a gesture, without even a glance in your direction, you feel him. Something shifts in the air. Your spine straightens slightly. Your voice lowers without you realizing it. You become more careful with what you say. You become more precise. And you don't know why. You just know that something about this man is different. Something about him is dangerous. Not dangerous like violence. Dangerous like depth. Like an ocean that has no visible bottom. You don't know how far down it goes, and that terrifies you. That man is not special by birth. He was not handed that presence. He built it. He built it in the dark, in the silence, in the moments when no one was watching, and he chose to do the hard thing anyway. He built it through 1,000 small acts of self-mastery that nobody ever saw and nobody ever praised. He built it by learning one of the most ancient and most ruthless truths that exists about human nature. And that truth is this: discipline is not a tool, it is a weapon. And when you carry it long enough, when you sharpen it consistently enough, it begins to radiate outward. It becomes visible. Not through what you say, but through what you no longer need to say. Not through how you act, but through the stillness underneath your actions. Most people think discipline is about productivity. They think it is about waking up at 5 in the morning and hitting the gym and eating boiled chicken and crossing things off a list. They have reduced it to a system of habits and hacks and morning routines that look impressive on social media and collapse by the second week of January. That is not discipline. That is performance. And performance always has an audience. Real discipline does not need an audience. Real discipline is what you do when the audience has gone home. It is what you do when no one is watching and every part of you is begging to stop. It is the decision you make in the quietest, darkest corner of your own mind when the only voice in the room is the one telling you to quit. The reason truly disciplined people intimidate others has nothing to do with aggression. It has nothing to do with status or money or physical size. It is something far more subtle and far more powerful. It is the fact that they have conquered the one enemy that defeats almost every human being on the planet: themselves. When you look at a man who has genuinely mastered himself, what you are looking at is someone who has already won the war that most people are still losing every single day. The war against comfort, the war against distraction, the war against the part of the mind that negotiates, that bargains, that says just this once, that says you deserve a break, that says tomorrow is fine. He has silenced that voice, not forever, because it never stops speaking, but he has learnt to move without its permission. And that is what you are sensing when you feel that shift in the room. You are sensing a man who does not require your validation to function. You are sensing a man who has removed himself from the economy of approval that most human beings live and die inside of. And that removal is unsettling because it makes him unpredictable. It makes him free in a way that feels almost inhuman. The average person is readable. You can predict what they will do because their behavior is tied to how they feel. Flatter them and they soften. Criticize them and they recoil. Ignore them and they chase. They are puppets of their own emotional state, which means anyone who understands emotions can pull their strings. But the disciplined man has cut those strings, not because he doesn't feel things. He feels everything. He feels the exhaustion and the doubt and the loneliness and the desire to be seen and appreciated just like everyone else. The difference is that his feelings do not have a vote. They are acknowledged and then they are set aside. And when a person cannot be moved by flattery, cannot be rattled by criticism, cannot be seduced by comfort, they become something almost terrifying. They become immovable. And people do not know how to deal with immovable things. They do not know how to manipulate them. They do not know how to predict them. So they respect them, sometimes without even wanting to. There is a cost to this kind of discipline, and you need to understand it before you decide to pursue it. Because most people who talk about discipline are selling you the reward without telling you about the price. The price is real, and it is heavy, and it is paid in ways that no one warns you about. The price is not the early mornings, or the missed meals, or the long hours of work. Those are the visible costs, the ones that look noble on the outside. The real cost is loneliness. Not the temporary loneliness of a Friday night spent working instead of drinking. The deeper loneliness of becoming someone that most of the people around you can no longer fully reach. When you begin to genuinely master yourself, you create a distance between you and the version of yourself that people knew. And many of them will not follow you across that distance, not because they don't care about you, but because your growth requires honesty about themselves that they are not ready to face. You will lose people on this road. Some of them you will lose loudly, in arguments and accusations and words that are designed to pull you back down to where you were. They will call it concern. They will dress it in the language of friendship and love, but underneath it is fear. Fear that you are becoming something they cannot keep up with. Fear that your discipline is a silent indictment of their comfort. Fear that if you make it, if you actually become the person you are building yourself to be, then the story they have told themselves about why they never tried becomes a lie. And people will do almost anything to protect the stories they tell themselves, even if it means tearing down someone else's progress to keep those stories intact. Let them go, not with anger, not with superiority, but with the quiet understanding that every person is on their own timeline and yours does not require their approval to continue. The disciplined man does not cut people off in rage. He simply outgrows them in silence. He keeps moving, and one day he looks back and realizes the distance has grown so large that the connection no longer holds. And he mourns it for a moment, because he is human and loss is loss regardless of its necessity. And then he turns forward again and keeps walking, because the mission does not pause for grief. What you are building when you build discipline is not just a better version of yourself. You are building a different relationship with time. The undisciplined man lives in two places simultaneously. He lives in the regret of yesterday and the fantasy of tomorrow. He replays his failures and he daydreams about his success, and he spends almost no time in the only place where anything can actually be done, which is right now, in this moment, with these hands, with this mind, making this decision. The disciplined man collapses that distance. He pulls his entire existence into the present moment, and he acts. Not when he feels ready, not when the conditions are perfect, not when he has finished preparing and planning and waiting for some invisible signal that it is finally time. He acts now. And then he acts again. And then again. And it is the relentless accumulation of those actions, unglamorous and unseen and unappreciated, that eventually produces something that the outside world looks at and calls talent or luck or genius. But you will know what it actually is. You will know it is just time. Compressed and disciplined and directed with intention. This is what intimidates people most about the truly disciplined. It is not what they have accomplished. It is the sense that they will not stop, that there is no finish line in their mind, that they are not working toward a moment of arrival after which they can finally relax and be ordinary again. The fire is not performance. It is not temporary intensity fueled by a motivational video or a rough patch they are trying to get through. It is structural. It is built into the architecture of who they are. And when people sense that in someone, when they sense that relentless internal engine that does not require external fuel to keep running, it produces a very particular feeling. A mixture of awe and unease. Awe because something in every human being recognizes greatness and responds to it involuntarily. Unease because that recognition is immediately followed by the awareness of everything they have not done, everything they have postponed, every promise they have made to themselves and quietly abandoned. The disciplined man becomes, without trying to, a living reminder of what is possible. And possibility is a beautiful and terrifying thing for people who have chosen comfort. So here is what you must understand about the path ahead. It will not always feel powerful. There will be days when the discipline feels like a prison rather than a throne. Days when the routine feels hollow, and the work feels pointless, and the distance from other people feels like deprivation rather than strength. Those are the days that matter most. Those are the days when the separation between the man you were and the man you are becoming is actually being carved out. It is not carved in moments of inspiration. It is carved in moments of exhaustion when you do the work anyway. It is carved in moments of doubt when you show up anyway. It is carved in the unglamorous, quiet, unremarkable Tuesday afternoon when you had every reasonable excuse to stop and you didn't. Nobody sees those moments. Nobody praises them. Nobody posts about them. But they are the entire foundation. They are the stone beneath everything that will eventually be built. And one day, without ceremony, without announcement, without a moment that feels as dramatic as you imagined it would, you will realize that you have become him. That version of yourself you could not quite see clearly when you started. The one who moves through the world differently. The one who carries something in his presence that cannot be faked or borrowed or explained. The one who walks into a room and says nothing and is heard by everyone. You will not feel invincible. You will not feel like a different species. You will feel like yourself, more fully and more completely than you ever have before. Quiet, clear, unmovable. And the world will feel it before you even open your mouth. That is the silent power of discipline. Not what it gives you, but what it makes you. And what it makes you, nothing and no one can take away. There is a silence that weak men fear and strong men carry like armor. It is not the silence of having nothing to say. It is the silence of having no need to say it. Watch how most people behave in a conversation. Watch how quickly they fill empty space with words, how they rush to explain themselves before anyone even questions them. How they volunteer their insecurities, their plans, their fears, almost as if the act of speaking about something releases them from the responsibility of actually doing it. This is the great leak of human energy. Words spoken before action is taken are pressure released before the engine builds, and a man with no pressure in his engine goes nowhere. The disciplined man has learned to seal that valve. He has learned that silence is not emptiness, it is accumulation. Every time he chooses not to explain, not to justify, not to announce, he is storing something. He is building a kind of internal gravity. And gravity, by its nature, pulls things toward it without effort, without noise, without asking. People begin to orbit him. They want to know what he is thinking. They want to understand what he is building. They lean in. They listen more carefully when he does speak, because they have learned that his words are not filler. They are not noise. When he opens his mouth, something is being said, and that rarity makes every word he speaks feel like it carries weight, like it matters, like it was considered before it was released into the world. This is the first layer of the silent power of discipline. The power of restraint, and restraint is something the modern world is actively trying to destroy. Everything around you is designed to make you react, immediately, emotionally, without thought. The notification that demands your attention right now. The argument online that needs your response this second. The drama in your social circle that requires your opinion tonight. It is all engineered to keep you in a constant state of reaction, because a man who is always reacting is never creating. A man who is always responding to the world has no time to build anything within himself. He is perpetually on defense, perpetually scattered, perpetually drained. And the people who benefit from your distraction are counting on you, never figuring that out. The man who steps off that conveyor belt, who refuses to react, who takes his attention back and turns it inward, becomes something the modern world rarely produces. He becomes deliberate, and deliberate men are rare enough to be remarkable. They stand out not because they are loud, but because they are still in a world that cannot stop moving. They are focused in a world that has forgotten what focus feels like. And that stillness, that focus, that sense of a man who is going somewhere specific and will not be pulled off course, reads to other people as power. Because it is power, not the borrowed power of a title or a position or someone else's permission. Real power, the kind that lives inside a person and cannot be taken from them. Now understand something about the way human beings perceive each other. We are always, beneath every conversation and interaction, running a quiet assessment. We are asking, consciously or not, is this person controlled, or are they controlling themselves? Is this person reacting, or are they choosing? Is this person trying to impress me, or are they indifferent to my impression? And we respond to the answers to those questions in ways we rarely admit. We are drawn to the person who doesn't need us. We are repelled, slowly and quietly, by the person who does. This is not cruelty, it is biology. It is the ancient recognition that the person who needs nothing from you is the person who has something. And the person who has something is the person worth knowing, worth following, worth fearing, in the way that greatness has always been feared. When your discipline becomes visible, not because you have announced it, but because it has shaped you from the inside out, people feel it before they understand it. They see it in the way you carry yourself. There is no apology in your posture. There is no performance in your stride. You are not walking to be watched. You are walking because you are going somewhere. They hear it in the way you speak. You do not ramble. You do not over-explain. You do not fill silence with nervous energy. You say what you mean, and then you stop. And that stopping, that comfort with silence after speech, is one of the most quietly powerful things a human being can do in the presence of others. Most people cannot tolerate the silence after they speak. They rush to fill it because silence feels like judgment to them. But to a man who has made peace with his own mind, silence is just silence. It is neutral. It is comfortable. And his comfort with it makes everyone else in the room slightly uncomfortable, which is exactly where power lives.